Views and opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the staff or management of the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas podcast.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this week's Big Rock and Roll Radio Show. Or, it's the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas podcast. I'm John Eagleman. Thanks for joining. We're going to get a little historical this week as we talk with Kyle Alexander of R.G. Macon and Carson Apple Brandy. And their story goes back into the 1800s in Bentonville. But before we hear from Kyle, good news. The brand new Oak Steakhouse opened in Rogers last Friday and gave us a sneak peek the day before. And what a spot. It's located on the 6th floor of the new Hotel Avail, which also opened last week. We were treated to cocktails and some delicious appetizers, including some delectable desserts. The views from the 6th floor are beautiful, both indoor and on their gorgeous patio. On their website, it says that Oak Steakhouse brings its signature approach to the American steakhouse, where the finest cuts in steak and uncompromising commitment to quality and genuine hospitality set the stage for an unforgettable dining experience. We caught up with General Manager Dylan Peterson, who reminds us that there is no I in team.
For me, my first role was just finding the right team, and I really think that we did that here. I've got a ton of faith in everything coming out of the kitchen, and our front of house staff is they're really grateful to be here, as am I. So I just hope that we make the community and everyone proud.
The location of the very first Slim Chickens in Fayetteville on College is almost up and going with their new fly-through concept. They have a QR code out front, and if you scan it, you'll see they'll be opening on July 21st at 10:30 a.m. If you want free Slim Chickens for a year, be one of the first 50 guests there that morning. Saw an interesting note this week from Axios NWA about the craft beer in the state of Arkansas. Turns out that the state's craft beer sales volume is dominated by Northwest Arkansas breweries, of course outside of Lost 40 Brewing in Little Rock, which sells the most craft beer by far of anyone in the state. Next is New Province, followed by Bentonville Brewing, Ozark Beer Company, Flyway Brewing, which is a Little Rock company, but they do have a location in Fayetteville, and Fossil Cove round out the next five spots, I should say. Look at last Friday's Axios NWA newsletter for more about craft beer in the state. An extremely important position will be coming open at the end of the summer. It's the executive director position at Cobblestone Farms. Now, what do? They grow and provide fresh produce for those that are food insecure. It is a busy place, but with a beautiful mission. If you think that's for you, go to Cobblestone Farms' LinkedIn page for more information and to apply. Airship Coffee's opened their new location on the Walmart campus. It's called Airship on the Porch. It's described as having a cozy interior lined with plant life in the cafe and an expansive covered porch directly outside. In addition to coffee, they have seasonal toasts on their house-made rustic Italian bread. They're located at 810 Customer Drive. The Pharaoh Pig Restaurant in Fayetteville held their official grand opening last Sunday. They're open every day from 7 to 3, and you can get anything on the menu at any time of the day, whether it's breakfast for lunch or, say, honey chipotle shrimp for breakfast. They've been open since January and have been fine-tuning during that time. Owner Julie Sill, who had Common Grounds and Hog House Brewery, knew it was finally time.
So it's been a long time coming. I know people are like, really? You've been open. We have, but we've kind of depended on that loyalty from our customers to get us through the glitches, the hiccups, all the do's and don'ts of opening a new restaurant. So that's been wonderful. They also know what my standards are, so they hold my employees accountable for that. And they also know what my food should taste like, and they've said that we've nailed that. So that's been great.
Dodo Coffee has broken ground on their soon-to-be location in Fayetteville. It'll be off of West Weddington, just north of Cross Church. We're obviously a ways out. No word yet on when they're targeting to open. It was a big anniversary weekend last weekend with young and old restaurants. We kick it off with the legendary Venesian Inn. They turned 78. If you go to their Facebook page, you'll see hundreds of replies to the post from people that have worked there or related to people that worked there over the years, and some great, great stories. Even I got stuck going down a rabbit hole there for some time. Congrats to the current owners, Jeff and Melissa Bowen, who, by the way, we had a great podcast with on February 19th of this year. And celebrating their 1-year anniversary are the legends in the making at Gaskins on Emma. Hard to believe it's already been a year. Congrats to owners Bert Jones, Lisa Provencio Jones, and executive chef Sam Walker. We had a fun podcast over there October the 7th of last year. Back in the late 1800s, R.G. Macon and Carson made apple brandy just off the Bentonville Square in a dry county where they couldn't even sell a bottle legally. Believe it or not, they got so popular in the late 1800s to early 1900s that they were the first nationally known entrepreneurs from Bentonville. How did they get there? Well, you'll hear. What happened to them when Prohibition hit? Well, it's quite the story. Kyle Alexander is one of the partners running Macon and Carson, and he knows their history better than anyone. He'll tell us what's going on with them today, and that's next, right here on the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas.
Teachers are dynamic leaders, shaping a new generation. Innovating to prepare students for our fast-changing world. They're skilled experts, discovering a universe of solutions, telling stories, inspiring, mentoring, connecting cultures, leading by example. Teaching is a journey that shapes lives. Are you ready to begin? Explore teaching at teach.org.
And welcome back. We are at Rendezvous Junction Brewery, and we are talking local apple brandy with R.G., Macon, and Carson. I had to look at your shirt. I was going to try to... I get it.
Okay,
I've been doing Carson and Macon instead of Macon and Carson. That's totally my fault. We're with Kyle Alexander, and we are talking local apple brandy. How are you, sir?
I am doing great, John.
Man.
Thanks for having me
Absolutely.
On the podcast, man. This is
I appreciate you being here. This is not a topic that I've broached on this podcast before.
Okay.
So I'm very pleased to learn today.
All right. Well, I will share everything I know.
I hope not, for your sake. Well, such
a little bit, anyway.
There you go. Such a rich history with R.G. Macon and Son, and Carson. R.G. Macon and Carson. I knew I'd get it wrong.
No, man, you're fine.
Over.
You're fine.
R.G. Macon and Carson apple brandy, going all the way back to the 1800s in Bentonville.
That is correct. And you know what's crazy about it is we found out about it from a group of older gentlemen, and I was having breakfast with them, and they basically asked me, hey, we were talking about bourbon, and they said, do you know there was a huge distillery in downtown Bentonville before Prohibition? I said, I had no idea. And we started talking about it, and one of the gentlemen took me down to the ruins of that old distillery because it was not on sequestered land as it is now.
Okay.
And we looked at it, and it's just concrete, a pad, and some rock formations, some brick and things like that.
Sure.
And he told me this story, and I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Somebody should do something to preserve part of our culinary history, and certainly the history of our spirit, our native spirit, which is apple brandy for Arkansas.
Sure.
Because it was in downtown Bentonville, 200 yards from the courthouse annex. That's crazy.
It is insane.
Yeah. It's a great story, though, and that started the whole journey. And short version of that story is I learned that piece of information, and then we went down to the Shiloh History Museum, and I had the curator and the researchers help me out and dig up a bunch of information on it. I read through the piles of information. They were so generous.
That's great.
And I said, you know what? Somebody's going to have to save this brand because it had been defunct since Prohibition in 1914. We'll talk about that later. But I was like, this is worth saving. This is part of our culinary history, and I don't know how many people even know about it.
Culinary and cultural, and I think, if you didn't know about it, not many people did outside of the older generation, those guys and maybe their group.
That's right.
And their families, the families of R.G., Macon, and Carson.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's insane. Well, something I didn't know until I went to your website and started my early research. Benton County, back in the day, was it turn of the century, led the nation in apple production.
That is correct. And we had some very unique apple varietals that were indigenous to this part of the state and part of the region.
You bet.
The Arkansas black apple is well known because it didn't need refrigeration. It could last 2, 3, 6 months, depending on how it was set up before it was shipped. So before refrigeration, it was an easy apple to ship. You had the Ben Davis. And, of course, there's a little place in Bentonville called Brightwater, Brightwater Institute. That's also another local apple.
You bet.
So there's quite a few of them. But, yeah, it was the largest area for apple production, fresh produce, in the nation for quite a while, really probably until the early to mid-1930s. And we even had Welch's apple juice factory here and some other things.
You bet.
So we had apple cider and, of course, apple brandy. Because the farmers had to use their second fruits, their rollers, their grounders, or whatever for something, right? They couldn't sell it first fruit, so had to have another use for it.
Yeah, that's crazy. 5 million bushels annually back then.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't sound like a lot right now because we have automatic equipment.
Right.
And electricity and all the things.
Right.
Can you imagine doing that by hand?
By hand, by donkey, by horse, by whatever they had, right? I mean, and you think about it, Washington and Benton County together represented the largest apple production area in the nation.
Yeah.
And a big reason why the railroad came to Rogers and then later to Bentonville was because of the apple.
Yeah.
We used to have these huge apple festivals and all the major cities around here.
You bet.
Because that was the nexus of our economy. So before there was, big chicken, big trucking, or big box, there was Big Apple and, of course, Big Brandy.
Yeah. No doubt about it. And listen, not far away in Tonatown, Big Grape.
That's right.
Gigantic
Another
grape.
reason Welch's was here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's just crazy. So Macon and Carson apple brandy at its peak, 600 gallons a day.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, 200,000 gallons a year roughly out by rail out of a dry county, 200 yards from the courthouse annex in downtown
It's
Bentonville.
the dry county part that just gets me every time, right?
That's right. They couldn't sell a drop of it. They weren't supposed to drink any of it.
Right.
And it had to go out by rail. Thus, one of the reasons the rail spur came to Bentonville was to haul all of that brandy out of Bentonville.
Insane.
So it went all over the country and in many cases across the ocean. So, it's just an amazing story.
Unbelievable. I can't believe that not a legal bottle was sold in Bentonville. Legal being the operative word. Legal.
Legal is the thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure the legality of all this was very different in the late 1800s
I'm sure
and early
the sheriff
1900s.
was handsomely paid to look the other way.
There's probably some stuff going on, but we don't know. We're not worried about that.
We weren't there.
But I will tell you that what's great about brandy is if you are making brandy, you're making a product out of 100% fruit. There absolutely is no grain. It cannot be called brandy unless it's 100% fruit.
Okay.
Most people don't know that if it's brandy, it's made from grapes. If it's apple brandy, made from apples. Peach brandy, made from peaches. But if it just says brandy, it's essentially distilled wine.
Okay. Fair
out
enough.
of grapes. Everything else is still a wine or a cider, which are ubiquitous kind of. But anyway, they're just distilled fruit.
That is a good history lesson and a good horticultural lesson, I guess.
It's kind of interesting.
I think it's very interesting. So, then comes Prohibition.
Yeah.
Doors shut.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they've got a vinegar company in Bentonville.
Yeah.
And I think they have many vinegar companies in Bentonville now.
And in Centerton and in Rogers and in Fayetteville and in Lincoln.
That's
we
it.
had a lot of apple cider vinegar. But what was unique is the brandy distillery lasted from 1893 to 1914. So Prohibition came
amazing.
7 years early to Arkansas for many of the right reasons. But I'll just say this. That axe-wielding maniac from Kansas came here, And she decided that she could convert all the ladies to believe that this was bad for their family. And so Prohibition came early to Arkansas. Now, that axe-wielding maniac is buried in Eureka Springs, which is kind of interesting as well.
Carrie Nation is what I have down. Yeah,
that is correct.
Boy.
Yeah.
She was trying to carry a
I wasn't going to give her any press, man, but thanks.
Well, I mean, just so people know.
Oh, no, that's fair.
People
that's
know
fair.
what grave to skip, I guess, if that's
so
what
good.
it ends up being.
That's so good.
So, over a century later, you talked about it earlier about finding out the story of the company and wanting to revive it. Were you already thinking about some sort of distillery or some sort of production doing that?
Well, a long time ago, right when I visited Deschutes Brewery in 1989 or 90 in Oregon, I thought, man, there is some great history in the South about Blackbeard in the Carolinas. And I thought, man, Blackbeard Ale would be an amazing thing to do.
Sure.
But that was a passing thought, right? I never had any intention to do anything with alcohol or what have you. And certainly never had any intention of making brandy. In fact, I don't think I'd ever even had it before we started this crazy venture.
Okay.
So we really didn't know what we were doing with brandy, so to speak. So we had some great local distillers help us cultivate a recipe, along with a good friend of mine who worked with them on a recipe. We had, I think, 16 or 17 variations till we came up with the right blend and yeast and barrel and all of the things that it takes to make it.
Sure.
And we made a good product, and we were like, yeah, I think we can do this. But the whole intent was to just save the brand.
Okay.
But we didn't realize that to save the brand, we actually had to make a product.
Well,
I mean, imagine that, right? I mean, I'm a smart enough entrepreneur to know better.
Were you just going to print T-shirts and call it a day?
I would maybe visit the historical societies. I don't know, but I don't know what was in my head about it or anybody else's. But we said, well, we got to make a product.
Yeah,
and so that's how it started. And we didn't make brandy like a traditional brandy, like Calvados from France, which is the premier apple brandy, according to those folks that love it. And I particularly like ours because we created something that tastes a lot like bourbon, but it's made out of 100% apples for those that care, and people in my family care, with celiacs, Crohn's, and other things. If you really are sensitive to grain, you can't drink bourbon.
Sure.
So if it's made out of 100% apples, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some interesting sidelines, and because it kind of tastes like bourbon, it's a great alternative for folks that can't do that.
That's really interesting. It's very interesting, and you just don't see a lot of that in a lot of places.
That's right.
And it shocks me because we may or may not have had a tasting before we hit play.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know, but I will tell you that I'm shocked with that taste. It's just not around as much as you would see the whiskeys of the world.
That's right.
And did I say that right? Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay, good.
And what most people don't know, and I'm going to give you 3 little tidbits of history because this is fun.
Oh, good.
Number 1, apple brandy is America's native spirit.
Well,
right?
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
There you go.
So George Washington and Colonel Laird helped create the first commercial distillery. The Continental Army drank apple brandy.
No kidding.
It predates bourbon by quite a few decades.
Seriously?
Yes, because we had abundance of apples in that region of the country, and it was easy to make.
Yeah.
Whiskey, by becoming bourbon later, out of 51% corn in the mash bill or whatever, or 100% corn or whatever they were doing, that is unique to America because the farmers had to have a way to get rid of the corn they couldn't sell because it was going to spoil.
Okay.
And so, being Scott-Irish or whatever they were, they knew how to make whiskey out of just about any kind of grain, and so they attempted to do it with corn, and it worked.
Huh.
So that is kind of the nexus of what happened with kind of taking the the mantle from apple brandy in this country is you had a lot more farmers growing corn than you did apples.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Interesting from a very local perspective.
Right. It's Arkansas's native spirit because we were the largest producer of apples for a period of time.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. So, and I'm guessing you have a sales background. Is that what I'm sensing here?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I am a supply chain guy through and through.
There you go.
Education, career, the whole 9 yards.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
But always had an entrepreneurial spirit.
Of course. Yeah. Also from a family of entrepreneurs, but in the media space. It's probably hard to tell.
No.
I'm kidding.
It's awesome.
I'm kidding. So getting this whole thing together, one of the biggest problems I would see, or biggest leaps, the biggest hurdles would be permits and fees starting a distillery.
Well, yes, indeed, and that's why I have great friends to start this whole plan, because we had a group of guys, some local town folk, as we like to call them.
Yeah.
Some of my good friends who got behind this crazy idea and said, "Hey, we're going to make this happen, but we're not going to dump X millions of dollars into distillery to see if we can make a product that works."
Sure.
So we contract distill. And we still contract distill, and probably will for a long time, because the production, when and if we get all of the fees and permits and the equipment and everything done to make our product ourselves, then we will still need extra production from time to time, depending on the apple crop.
Okay.
So we love our contract distillers. They've done an amazing job. We have one, Tall Pines Distilling, in Noel, Missouri.
Okay.
They do a great job. They make our 100% pure Arkansas black apple brandy, which we'll talk about in a minute,
Sure.
as well as our single barrel, single crop reserve apple brandy, which is different than what we make in Arkansas.
Okay.
It's for the Missouri market.
Okay.
And then we have a distillery, which is Falling Rock Distilling,
Okay.
near Huntsville. And they do an amazing job. Also an incredible craft distiller. And for the record, there are only 7 to 9 active distilleries that are licensed
Oh, there's that.
by the federal government.
There's that.
To distill in the state of Arkansas. So there aren't many of us.
Hands can get tied.
Yeah. And so Arkansas is a unique place when it comes to distilling.
Yeah.
We got our good friends Fox Trail right next door.
Good guys.
Here from Rendezvous. Great guys. And we have the Arkansas Distillers Guild, that is a great organization of great distillers who all work together.
Yeah.
And just like in Kentucky, we don't really view each other as competitors, because
Right.
we all doing something relatively different and unique.
Sure. But
But we help each other, which is great.
And the beer community, by the way, is that way here.
Absolutely.
Everyone's so great with that.
Absolutely. And as we sit here in Rendezvous Junction, our friends here at Rendezvous have used our barrels to make a type of porter. By aging that porter in our barrel, that barrel provides an amazing flavor profile, both a bourbon flavor profile as well as the apple brandy sweetness, the caramels, the honeys, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
And it just turned out to be a great beer. And we've done that with that kind of collaboration with other breweries in this area. There are so many great craft brewing operations here. It's just a privilege to be able to work in this space, because everybody is trying really hard to make a great product.
Yeah.
And they pour their heart and soul into it, just like we do.
Absolutely.
And I love that.
Absolutely. And to your barrel point, I don't remember if we were rolling on this or not when you said you could only use your barrels once.
That's correct. John, that's a great point. So we have our barrels made for us, uniquely designed barrels.
Sure.
In Hot Springs, Arkansas. 4th-generation Cooper down there by the name of Jay Gibbs. Jay Gibbs. His grandfather actually made barrels, according to legend, for Capone when Hot Springs was Little Chicago.
Love it.
So they're using Arkansas, Missouri white oak, just like you would use to make a bourbon barrel, because to make bourbon, it has to be 51% corn by law in the mash bill, and it has to be aged in American white oak. So Arkansas, Missouri happens to be the home of a lot of that.
Yeah.
And so they make our barrels on 1930s equipment. It's beautiful.
That's great.
It's like furniture. They're great barrels, and you can only, unfortunately, use them once after they've been charred to get the flavor profile.
Of course.
It's like a tea bag, right?
Yeah, of course.
Once you use it, you can't use it again to get the flavor.
I get it. There's just so much you have to do.
Exactly. And so we use those barrels in collaborations with a lot of different entities, right?
Yeah.
So we work with the brewing industry, we work with the chocolate folks at Kaya. Rick Boozy and his team are amazing.
Love Rick.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
And props to him and his team. We've worked with Wicked Bean and Call Sign Coffee to make our coffee, because you can age coffee beans, cacao beans, and other things in the barrel to soak up what's called the devil's cut out of the wood.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing, because
Yes.
it makes a great flavor for other products, whether it be beer, coffee, or chocolate.
And we'll get knee deep into the
Yeah.
chocolate and the beer and everything else, and the products coming up here in a second. But I'll tell you what, let's jump out. We'll do the My King Open Home Pro Tip of the Week.
Okay.
And then when we come back, we will get into those products. Sound good?
All right, I love it.
That's coming up
sounds
next.
great.
All right here on the Flavors of Northwest Arkansas.
Connect with us at Flavors of Northwest Arkansas on Facebook and Instagram, or by email at flavorsofnwa@gmail.com.
Okay, it is time for the My King Open Home Pro Tip of the Week, and for that, we go to Kyle. Kyle, what's your tip?
Well, I'm hopeful that this is not a home improvement tip, because
No.
I'm not a handyman. So
Nope.
I will talk about something I do know, which is making awesome cocktails out of our product.
Ooh.
Did you know that the original recipe for both eggnog and old fashions required brandy, not bourbon?
I did not know that.
Okay, so for the traditionalist around, a lot of people in Wisconsin won't drink an old fashioned unless it has some sort of brandy.
Right.
So they're pretty traditional about all of that. So we have an incredible old-fashioned recipe. It's on our website, which is www.arkansasapplebrandy.com. We also have done an eggnog in collaboration with Steve Brooks here locally, one of our great chefs. And man, it turned
Chef
out
Brooks.
great. Yeah, Chef
he's
Brooks.
great.
Yeah, Chef Brooks is awesome.
Yeah, man.
So we've just got great partners in here. So home tip of the week, the easiest cocktail you can make with our brandy is what I call an apple brandy punch.
Okay.
So it requires three things. One, our brandy, Arkansas apple brandy, right? Which is Macon and Carson apple brandy. And we put a little bit of pomegranate juice in there for the summer.
Interesting.
And we also like to put a little, we'll call it lime and lemon zest, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Kind of brighten it up a little bit. And apple cider, not the hard cider, just a generic kind you can buy. Yeah, old school. And for fun, we like to put in a little butter shots, they call it, or butterscotch schnapps.
Oh, there you talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
So put that in there, and man, it makes the best apple brandy punch for the summer. Of course, you got to ice it down. Now, remove the pomegranate and do the same thing.
Yeah.
Add some mulling spices and heat it up.
Oh.
And then you have an apple brandy toddy for the winter. So
there you go.
I'm just saying, all these great recipes are
Okay,
on
so the
website.
punch, is it shake? Do you shake it?
I do.
Okay,
I get
good.
a little cocktail mixer and shake that
There you
up
go.
and
There you
get
go.
it all going.
Great tip.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, man. Hope everybody tries it.
There
right?
you go. We'll be right back.
Your story doesn't have to end. As an organ donor, the good in you can live on. In fact, you can save up to 8 lives through organ donation. Sign up to give the gift of life after you're gone. You'll be happy you did. Just maybe, someone else will too. Sign up online today as an organ, eye, and tissue donor at organdonor.gov. It saves lives.
Organ transplants increase every year in the U.S., which is a great thing. 60 to 70% of those are kidney transplants. The good news, we're all born with 2 kidneys. The better news, we can function and function well with just one. And there are those out there that have volunteered that one to people that are less fortunate on the kiddie side of things, myself included. Formerly, myself included. Go to kidneyregistry.com if you have interest in doing that. Kidneyregistry.com, you'll see what steps are needed for you to sign up. Also, you'll see if you qualify. That's a big part of it as well. Kidneyregistry.com. And in the meantime, if you're not an organ donor, do so at organdonor.gov. You can also do it on the Health app on your iPhone. And you can also do it at your local Department of Finance if you're in Arkansas, or DMV if you're in one of the other states. Just declare it when you're in line. If you're getting a new license, just say, put me down as an organ donor, and that is what you need. Thank you very much, as always. And we are back. We're talking apple brandy with Kyle Alexander, and we're at Rendezvous Junction, by the way. Great setup, and it's packing up in here. Folks are turning around. They're all watching you.
I hope not.
With Macon and Carson, by the way, apple brandy, and we're talking apple brandy, of course. And man, what an amazing history we've been talking about. Now I want to get into the products.
Okay.
But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about how you guys distill. You mentioned it a little bit earlier on the contract side of things, but you've got several distilleries that you contract through. And I think on the production side of things that I would hope frees you up to be a little bit creative.
It does, actually, and we have a great partner in Missouri with Tall Pines Distilling, and they actually helped us with a passion project of mine, which was to create the first pure 100% Arkansas black apple brandy that we know of that has been distilled commercially in over 100 years. And we did it primarily for charity once it was made and we knew it tasted great. And we did about 50 bottles.
Nice.
And it was amazing. We pulled the bung on that barrel after it had aged, and it smelled like caramel apples. Not that there's anything in the world wrong with our 5 to 7 varietals of apples that go into our base brandy.
Sure.
But this was unique.
Yeah.
And we learned something important about Bentonville's original heirloom apple, which is the Arkansas Black, which was cultivated for the first time, I think, in the 1840s in downtown Bentonville.
Wow.
It is an amazing brandy apple. And that might be why the Macon and Carson brand was so popular, because it had that in it.
Yeah.
Now, we put a little Arkansas Black in all of our brandy, but to do 100% pure, it is hard to find enough apples.
Well, I was going to ask you, with black apple, Arkansas black apples being what they were back in the day, which was durable.
Yes.
You don't necessarily need that nowadays. So I would think it would be harder to find a really good and a good producer that is really focused on it.
I don't think there are a lot of producers that focus on it. There are some in Colorado and out on the West Coast. We have some orchards still around here, with black apples in them, but getting enough to do a large production volume is not a thing.
It's tough.
And we love our friends at Black Apple Cidery down in Springdale.
You bet.
But we all try to use a little bit of Arkansas Black when we can, and it just makes a wonderful cider, which in turn, if you make hard cider and distill it, it makes brandy.
Yeah.
So we've learned a lot about it. We loved it so much, and it helped our friends at one of our local charities well enough that
awesome.
We made a 20-gallon barrel of it that should be ready October 2026. So I can't wait to see how that turns out.
Me too, actually.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
And you might have, or maybe not, have tried the original, one of the few 50 bottles available of that product. So what did you think?
I don't know that anyone knows if I tried it or not. But if I did, in fact, try it, I could tell you that it was most likely outstanding. That was only if I tried it. We're not sure if I tried it.
That's a fair point.
That was really good. Very smooth. Very, very smooth.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the next super release, as it were.
Super release. I like that.
I think we found our next idea, and that's growing black apples. We just need to do our own orchard, and we can license all the folks around here, and we'll make a killing.
I think it would be a good thing.
I think so. I think so. So, how much do you guys produce a year?
So it varies based on the crop.
Sure.
So with our 2 producers and varying time on the machine, so to speak, it does vary. I would say anywhere between 800 and 1,200 bottles a year is typical. We're working on building a distillery here locally, and hopefully everything goes well with that. And that will certainly increase our production, because then we will have that additional capacity to add to our contract distillers. So
outstanding.
We're excited about that. And, it's really about sharing the history of Arkansas apple brandy with the world.
Yeah.
Because it is our original and traditional culinary spirit for the state of Arkansas. And as I mentioned before, it's also the nation's original spirit. So there's something important about that to me.
No question.
And that's the reason we got into this business, was to save a slice of our history and our local culture.
Sure.
Because we don't have a lot of things that predate corporate America around here.
True.
And I think that's important. And, I hope that all of our efforts will bring a lot of fans of what I believe to be one of the best apple brandies in the world.
Well, and you and I were talking earlier, you were not able to get any original recipes from the original Macon and Carson apple brandy. Not that they exist anywhere that you can find, I'm told. But I will say this, with the technology nowadays, I would assume it would be, I don't want to say easy, but possible to improve upon what it is they brewed back then.
I have no idea how it tasted. We have never found a bottle or a crock or a barrel with a label on it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean there isn't one out there. But if somebody has one, hey, find me.
Yes.
Let's talk about it.
This is a great point.
Yeah. So, but nevertheless, I think the idea behind it was, in early distilling, you want to make something that tasted good, but more importantly, it was a great way to use apples that were not first fruit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you can distill seconds, you can distill grounders and all of these things, which we don't do. We use first fruit. But still, back then, the farmers were early green and they didn't even know it.
Yeah.
They stood in line for hours in their wagons with their horses and their mules to bring apples to the distillery in downtown Bentonville.
You bet.
Because they had to have a way to make a little money off the things they couldn't sell as first fruit.
Absolutely.
So I just think that's so cool.
Yeah.
And if you think traffic jams in downtown Bentonville are interesting now, just imagine during harvest season when you had hundreds of carts full of apples pulled by livestock hanging around the square. Well, the livestock have a completely different exhaust system than an automobile. So it made it certainly an interesting commute at best. And
I'm gonna bet it wasn't cement back then.
No, I've seen some pictures, but
okay.
The odoriferous quality would have been much different than unleaded fuel.
Sure. Tell me a little bit about the products that you guys currently have and are currently making.
Yeah, so we currently make in Missouri 3 products. Of course, we talked about the 100% pure Arkansas Black Apple Brandy.
Sure.
We have a single crop, single barrel reserve apple brandy, which has multiple varietals of apples in it. And it's aged our specifications in our barrels.
Yep.
It turns out amazingly well. And then we also have something that I would call a higher octane version of the same.
Okay.
So you have different proofs.
Sure.
And so you can get it at 90 proof or 110 proof. Right now we don't have 110 proof available in the market, but we can always pivot because it's craft distilling, right? So that's a beautiful thing. In Arkansas, we Solera blend all of our products in a barrel of a certain age, so we drive consistency in the flavor profile.
What does that mean, Solera blend?
It's basically like a blended scotch. You take multiple barrels. And you stage them by age, and you blend multiple ages together. so you can get a consistency of flavor. So in Arkansas, we sell a lot more of it than we do in Missouri.
Sure.
And we want people to go up to Missouri and get something different. So in Missouri, it's aged more like a wine because it's single barrel, single crop.
Okay.
In Arkansas, it's consistent because we're blending those barrels together.
Sure.
So both products are equally amazing. Of course, you would expect me to say that, but I like them both, but they're different. And everybody's palate is different.
Sure.
And that's what's great about craft distilling.
No question.
You can pivot and make something that lots of people like, or you can pivot and make something that only a handful of people will like.
Absolutely.
And that's okay, either way.
No question about it.
Yeah.
That's great. And it's all a learning experience along the way.
We've learned a lot.
How do you guys decide what you're going to make next?
Well, we also make a fig vodka called...
Oh.
Yeah, it's delicious. And by the way, we don't have any for sale right now. I think there are like 5 or 6 bottles left in the marketplace. Figs are fresh when they come off the tree and go into our freezers before we distill them.
Okay.
And basically, they freeze the figs, which all come from Central Arkansas, in the freezer because it brings the sugar content out to the surface. So when you macerate the figs or soak them in the vodka that we're using to make the fig vodka, then you get more of those fig flavors in there after they've been frozen. And it's an amazing product, and it's called Woo, spelled different, Woo Fig Vodka. And it is local.
Okay.
And it is delicious. And I would call it the best, since the vodka we're using is made out of sugar cane from Louisiana, and the figs are full of sugar, you kind of think about, well, isn't tequila made of all sugar? Isn't rum made of all sugar? That is all true.
Yeah.
So if you're making a vodka out of sugar cane, it's going to be really clean.
Okay.
And you add the figs, and it smells like a fig Newton. It doesn't taste real sweet, and you can use it as a substitute for any vodka or as a substitute for tequila. And by the way, as I mentioned before with the apple brandy, it's gluten-free because it's all sugar.
Okay. That's a good note.
Yeah.
That's a great
win,
note.
Baby.
That is a win. That is a win. So what are your next releases?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of products, some that have just released, just dropped, which is, as you may see on the table here, which is our chocolate espresso beans in collaboration with Kaya Chocolate.
Absolutely.
And, man, they are amazing.
Yeah.
Rick does an incredible job with the cacao and making it into a beautiful chocolate that he coats those coffee beans in.
Yeah.
They're crunchy. They're delicious. They're full of antioxidants. There's not a ton of sugar in it. You can substitute four of those espresso beans in the morning for a cup of coffee or whatever your caffeinated high looks like.
You bet.
Some people like Mountain Dew, Red Bull, whatever. And it's better for you, I would say. Now, I'm not a nutritionist, so
there it is.
I'm not going to say that. But I think it would probably be better for you because it doesn't have a ton of sugar, and it's all natural.
Yeah. Have you ever heard Rick tell the story about his first trip to Ecuador to take out the middleman and try to source chocolate cacao himself?
Maybe.
Yeah. That's a great story. It's such a great story. We had him on the podcast last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, he was great. Just so great.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Now, tell me about events you guys have coming up.
Right. So we like to partner with a number of different entities in the community, both for charity and for fun.
True.
So, but the majority of our events that we pair with are for charitable organizations. We'll be working with a donation of our product to the Art of Wine.
Yeah, man.
And that is a traditional thing. I think they've been going, 35 years now? Something like that?
Yeah.
25 years? I don't know.
A good while.
A long time. And what a great organization.
So great.
And they raise money so local kids and teachers and other people who want to explore the arts can afford to do so with little or no money. And that's a great cause because broadening your horizons on the art complex of the world is a great thing to create creativity and entrepreneurship, and I'm all about both of those things.
Bet.
So I think that's a great thing to do. We also do an annual event called Moonshine and Music.
Yeah, man.
Which partners with all of our distillers in the state of Arkansas, and we go over to Fairfield Bay or that particular area and we do a tasting of our products, and we have some bluegrass that comes in, and it's all for charity. Our friends that put this on over there are amazing, and what a great event. So that'll be, I believe it's November 1st.
Okay.
Art of Wine, I think, is July the 11th.
I think so.
That's right.
I think so. I got tickets to it, so
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you'll come by my tent,
You
right?
bet, man.
Awesome.
Absolutely. You don't have to tell me twice.
All right, perfect. And I would say the other thing is we do local tastings at all of our local outlets, our retailers, which are all great partners of ours, and they want to see local craft distillers and local craft brewers be successful, especially those in Benton and Washington County, and we just love them. And they've been huge supporters of ours. And so doing tastings is one way that I can give back to help them sell the product that's on the shelf and help, broaden the horizons of people that may never have tried brandy.
Yeah, that's great. That's so great. And here in Northwest Arkansas, top of your head, do you know where folks can find your products?
I'll make this simple.
Okay.
Most of the largest spirit retailers in Washington and Benton County have our product.
Bang.
I'll make that simple.
That is simple.
Way nobody gets mad at me for not calling their name.
That's probably smart.
Because I love them all.
That's probably smart. That's really smart. So where can folks find you online and not necessarily in person, but online? In person, Art of Wine. How's that sound?
Art of Wine in person, great. We'll definitely be there. But no, just go to ArkansasAppleBrandy.com. I'll say it again, ArkansasAppleBrandy.com.
Yep.
We've got ton of history out there.
Yeah, man.
There's some stuff I didn't talk about that I would love for you to learn. And there's a lot of great cocktail recipes out there also. There's just so much to learn from that site. And, of course, you'll have to see my ugly mug. I got a face for radio. I get that. But, there's some great video on there, too, with some of our partners.
Nice.
And, John, thank you for
my pleasure.
Making this opportunity a possibility for us to continue to share this story and help us preserve a little bit of our culinary culture and history.
That's what I love doing. Love doing it. And you guys, social media as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we don't do it as much as we should.
No one does.
Just be blunt.
Yeah.
So
not many places do.
Yeah.
Kyle, appreciate your time.
John, thank you for the time, and thanks for the opportunity.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Please remember, guys, tip your servers. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.